Hey friends, Irene Lyon here, and welcome to this entire world of nervous system health and healing. Today I want to dive into a video that I'm titling The 3 Nervous System Practices That You Might Already Be Doing. Now what these are, I'm going to name them right now. One is resourcing, one is orienting, and one is following sensation and tracking sensation, being with body sensation. I have done bigger videos on these topics in the past. I'll be sure to link some of these near this piece, near this video, so that you can follow up and dive a bit deeper. But these 3 practices are all in service of building what we call capacity, or what I call capacity, nervous system capacity, this ability to be with our human experience as well as connect to the outside world at the same time. Now, just as a quick review for those who are new here, if you have experienced adversity, you're still living with unhealed traumas, which many people are, all these things that put us in a state of stress, we could say anxiety, depression, panic, functional freeze, all these kind of buzzwords in the nervous system healing world. When we have been put into these states of, for simplistic terms, nervous system dysregulation, and we're experiencing these symptoms and troubles, chronic pain, etc., our capacity to be with our body in the here and now, to orient, to resource, and to just be able to feel sensations and not be triggered by them, it's tricky. And so part of nervous system health, nervous system healing, and of course healing old stored traumas, is to work at building what we call capacity. Now, I'm not going to go into all the ways that I teach this and all the analogies. One of the ones I will make sure that you watch, if you haven't already, is my 3-part healing trauma series, and video number 1 talks about this capacity building with a very simple analogy. I call it my swimming pool and beach ball analogy. If you haven't watched that yet, be sure to do that. I will link that training near here so you can check that out and watch that video. So this concept of resourcing, orienting, and following and being with sensation, when we are brought into the world with safety, secure attachment, an environment that is fairly safe, and we have good nurturing from our primary caregivers, whether it's our mother, our father, whomever is looking after us, when we have that good first kind of few years of start in infancy and childhood, these pieces of resourcing, orienting, and following sensation in our bodies, they become built into us naturally. And we just do them naturally. That's sort of our birthright. And that's how a human being, how we want a human being to be raised, to have these things baked in via connection, learning, nurture, all the things that we want to provide to a newborn infant, and of course a child, and how they learn is through this interaction with their primary caregivers. Now, of course, as you may know, because you're here following me and watching this video, and I know this through the clients I've worked with, the students I work with, not all of us have gotten that, and that's okay. That's why neuroplasticity, this concept of neuroplasticity, is essential, because we as adults, of course, who are interested and want to do the work and heal and work on these old adversities and stresses and traumas, we can change and we can rewire and we can restore more regulation, more capacity to our body so that these things become second nature. Again, resourcing, orienting, and following sensation. So I'm going to break down each of these 3 just a little bit and give you some hints as to how you might be already doing these things and how you can expand them a bit more with higher awareness, with consciousness, which then with practice and with time, they start to become just like a second language. They become natural to us and we start doing them. So the first one is orienting. I'll start with that one first. This is this capacity for us to be with the external world and connect with it in what we would call an exploratory point of view, an exploratory manner. We might do this if we go to the beach and we look out at the ocean and we look for sailboats or whales or whatever might be in our area. We might do this at a park when we're watching birds, or we're looking up at the clouds. We might do this when it's raining and we hear the sound of thunder and rain, and we look outside and we orient, and it kind of, sometimes it takes our breath away, but it is a way for some of us to find more connection to the here and now. When we have had trauma, adversity, and we are living in a state of what we call nervous system dysregulation, our capacity to naturally exploratory orient with the environment is hindered. Sometimes it's not even existent. This is that concept of tunnel vision, where we are literally not seeing the cars that are in front of us as we cross the street, for example. So one way that we can bring more capacity on board is to slowly start to be more aware at the moments where we do look away from, say, the screen. We do look up to the clouds. We see literally those flowers that we stop and smell on our path when we're walking. It could be sitting in our home and just letting our eyes drift to something and really locking on what is around us in our space. It could be watching kids play. It could be people watching, right? When you're out and about and you're just checking out what people are doing, that is a way of orienting to the outside world. We can also orient in ways that aren't just visual, because of course someone who, say, is blind and doesn't have sight, sound, right? We can hear things. We can hear the birds, we can hear music, we can hear people's talk, we can hear the wind through the trees. So orienting is this capacity for us to be connected with the external world. Again, as I said, when we've been living with a lot of dysregulation, that gets a bit harder for some of us. Now, some of us, because there's always nuance, might be hyper oriented to the environment, but it's in a state of, we could say, more survival. We're looking for that bad thing to happen to us. But one of the ways that we can switch that script is to really start to actively engage with the environment with more, we could say, curiosity, more interest, looking for the things that we might enjoy. So, of course, everyone's different. If you have noticed in the past that you find yourself looking up at the clouds, hearing the birds, feeling the qualities around, the smells, the sights, the sounds, all the things, that is your system naturally going towards wanting to connect and be obviously alert but aware of the world around us. So one piece of homework I shall give you is, the next time you find yourself exploring the world around you and orienting, see if you can pause with that a little longer and take it in a bit more. Or you might actively go out to the park or go out to wherever you can. Often being outside is a nice way to do it, and engage consciously with what you're seeing and just slow things down. We can do this in our home too. If you're taking a bath or something like that, just allowing the eyes to see around and just feel that quality of connecting with the environment. So that is the first thing I wanted to cover, orienting, this capacity to be in the world and see it and notice it and sense it. This again is in service of building our capacity to be in the moment, and this is what our nervous system requires to eventually build this concept of safety, knowing I'm here, I'm safe, there's nothing coming at me, and that is accurate and true. Now, there are more elements to building safety. I'm not going to get into all those today, but this is one way that we can build that capacity. The second thing I wanted to bring in, resourcing. So again, you might be doing this already. If you know the things that help you calm down and soothe, maybe even think about what those might be right now. Is it a warm cup of tea? Is it movement? Is it music? Is it reading? Is it a cozy blanket? Is it a warm bath? Is it a friend? Is it watching a funny show? Is it a favorite thing? Something that you know brings you just a little bit of that that relief, that connection to self. It could be anything. It doesn't have to just be things and sounds. It could be a memory. It could be visualization of that beach, of that nature, of our grandchildren if we have them. Something that gives us that little spark of goodness that lets our system go down a little bit. Now, these are external resources to us. They're not stuff that's inside of us. While our imagination is internal, we're thinking about something that is in the past, or maybe just an image or a scene, right? We can hum a song and that can actually change our state. But these external resources help us, and some of us, we do them without even realizing it. When that occurs, so now this is the homework that I'm giving you, when you find yourself and you are conscious and aware and go, oh, I'm reaching for that thing, or I'm thinking of that song, or I'm turning on a funny show, or I'm playing with my dog or my cat, or I'm squeezing my favorite pillow, or whatever it is, that's where you take a pause, just like I mentioned with orienting, and you take some time to feel your body in the moment. You might connect with the feet, your feet on the floor if you're standing, or your pelvis if you're sitting. Maybe you even splice in a bit of orienting. Oh, when I'm with this cozy thing, I'm sensing my body, and I'm just going to look around and notice, what does the world look like as I am resourcing to this thing? I hope that makes sense. So by going that extra step, and then another step of pausing and feeling your physiology, your sensations, just how you can be in that moment with that resource, it is another way of building our capacity. Now, of course, this isn't something you just do once. You want to keep engaging with that active, conscious attention of, this is one of my resources. I'm really noticing it. And I'm noticing my jaw relaxes. I'm noticing my belly tightens. My stomach starts to gurgle. I might get a little hungry, or maybe it's letting me soothe and I have a yawn. That can be a sign of a part of our parasympathetic nervous system that helps us rest, digest coming online. So again, we can bring these things together to make them even more powerful in bringing more capacity to our nervous system. The final thing I want to talk about is sensation. We can say tracking sensation, noticing sensation. Some might say in the fields of somatic experiencing, which is one of the things I'm trained in, the felt sense, feeling our sensations. So a simple example is when I squeeze that thing that I love, I get warmth in my belly. Or when I'm really frustrated, I'm feeling a tightness in my throat. Or when I'm a little scared, there's butterflies in my stomach and there's this swirling sensation. So there's all these ways that we feel sensation. My classic example when I teach my students is if you stub your toe on a coffee table, it hurts. There's an ouch to it. There's a sting. If a kiddo falls off of their bike and they scrape their knee, it's going to hurt. They're going to cry. They're going to express the feeling of pain through maybe vocalization, tears, but there's a sensation in the body. So how can you, when you are noticing this physiology of yours, it's called interoception, that's the fancy word, the perception of the internal environment, can you again pause in that moment of feeling that sensation and really be with it, feel it, without putting a judgment on it, a positive or a negative, or this is scary, but just maybe you name it, there's a buzzing, or there's a heat, or there's a vibration, or there's a tightness. And how can you be with and maybe name, either in your mind or vocalizing it, I'm feeling this, I sense this, I'm noticing this in my groin, I'm noticing this in my thighs, there's a buzz of energy in my body. So when we can start to name a bit better these sensations and track them, again, that lets us know that we're not avoiding what's happening in our body. We're not shutting down to it. We're being consciously aware, attentive, noticing. And then if I splice in a few more things in that moment, what is it like to notice your feet on the floor? Can you sense your body sitting on that chair? Can you sense the world around you? It's like, oh, I'm feeling this buzzing. Maybe it gets a little intense. And then maybe from there, there's a connection to orienting. Or maybe there's an intensity that's a bit too much. I think I'm gonna grab that cup of tea or have a glass of water and feel something that can help shift, not to ignore the state, but to shift it a little bit so that that resource, so you see how I'm bridging these together, can then help you be with that sensation a little easier. How can you bring orienting into something that's out there and a little more settling so that this sensation inside can be felt with a little less sting or a little less intensity? Now, for some people, orienting, to just go a little further, it might not help to look far away when there's a big sensation. It might be better for a person to just maybe close eyes and just touch that area and just feel how you can be in that moment without bringing more stimulus to the system, because maybe that's enough stimulus to feel the sensation. So I wanted to give you a couple of examples because these pieces, these, we could say, nervous system practices, they're not cut and dry. They're not black and white. For some of us, it might help to look far away and that calms us down. For others, it's enough to just look at our hands or look at our legs and give them a bit of a squeeze when we're noticing something intense. For others, resourcing might be something that is very particular and very specific. For others, it might just be feeling the air on our face and stepping outside. So again, orienting, resourcing, tracking sensation. While I've named them linearly, they all can blend together depending on our system, depending on where we are on our journey of growing our capacity and our nervous system regulation. But for many people, these are things, these are practices, if you will. They are actions that we do as humans, often naturally. And the one thing I know and my students know is these things can be learned, they can be practiced to the point where they become second nature. And that's what we want. As we build more of this capacity, as we build more of this awareness, this ability to attend to these things, we start to be with our bodies in a more intelligent way and we don't shut them down. As I say in one of my courses, Smart Body, Smart Mind, we're creating a smarter body, which is a good thing. And then that influences our mind. It also influences our capacity to be in relationship with others and the world. And then, of course, that other note that I'll mention, when we were born and raised into safety and secure attachment and being given this capacity to play and orient to the world and be engaged with in the world, these pieces are natural and in us. But that means that we can learn them later in life. And that's what many of my students do at all ages, from 20 years old to 80 years old. We can bring these things in, we can learn because of neuroplasticity, and we can engage with this higher brain so that we kind of beef these up. We've just become better at noticing when we are doing these simple nervous system practices. So I hope this has been useful. I hope this has given you a little clue into some of the things that maybe you are already doing, or maybe you didn't know that reaching for that thing that is a resource can give you a cue and a clue to how to be with your body and learn how to settle, learn how to orient, learn how to feel sensation in a way that is just a little bit more, we could say, intelligent, bringing a little more intelligence to these natural actions that we do. I will link near this other videos and other pieces that I've done where I explore more about this concept of orienting and also being with sensation. Please check those out, because if you can learn a little bit more, it's always good to add a little more education and knowledge to these topics. And finally, if you're new here, if you're brand new here, or maybe you've been around a while and you haven't yet dove into my courses and programs, be sure to do so. One of the best ways that I suggest for people to learn more education and more practice is to begin with something called the 21-day Nervous System Tune-Up course. This is a self-study starter course, and it brings you through what I find are just the essential pieces of education. I call them the biology of stress. And then neurosensory exercises. That is my version of connecting to the body, orienting to the world, and all the in-betweens. So again, I will link that near here so you can check that out. Yeah, that's everything. I hope this is, again, like I said, been useful, gives you some cues as to how you can start being more intentional with these nervous system practices. Take good care, and we will see you next time.